Hits and Crits. This video is brought to you by Asmodee.
What's up, Hits and Crits family? Today with a new video together with Imperial Minis about our favorite wood dwellers, the Brotherhood without banners. So just give us a quick introduction from yourself.
Hey Pasha. Randall. I'm from the Imperial Minis channel, and I primarily play, I'd say, Brotherhood and Baratheon right now. So excited to join you guys and discuss some of the changes to the faction.
Yeah, so let's take a first look at the small agenda and what we'll be talking about. So, like impact on faction and list building, what other factions are throwing at the Brotherhood, and potential lists that you should bring to your next tournament. So, with this in mind, let's go to the first big change for the Brotherhood. So, the Sentinels, the peasants, actually changed quite a lot from the last patch, since they gain Sentinel as an order and their point increase. They got a point increase from 4 to 5. So, Randall, how would you rate these changes?
Personally, I would give this one 2 thumbs down. So for me, I liked spamming peasants before. It wasn't always the most competitive play, but I liked peasants at the 4-point spot. So I think it was more, to me, it's more important that they were a 4-point unit than the fact that they get some extra ability. And I feel like Sentinel was stapled onto these guys just to justify a points increase. So personally, I would have preferred to see them lose an ability and stay at 4 points, or somehow have worse stats. So I know it's not possible for them to have too much worse stats, but I prefer them at the 4-point spot because Brotherhood is in such a weird spot points wise and army building wise that putting them at 5 points makes it very awkward to find room for them without almost intentionally building around them or sacrificing points for your elite unit, because most Brotherhood armies are going to have an elite unit if they're not going just super wide. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Sentinel is an okay ability. It's situational, of course, though, and there's other opportunities to use that order in the faction with like Thoros Commander, for example. So I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I haven't made a whole lot of good use out of it yet in the patch. I've simply not been taking a lot of peasants. I have 2 peasants painted, which is very uncommon for me. I usually only paint one of a particular unit, so I'm a little bit miffed now that I will not be fielding 2 peasants as often as I was before.
Yeah, I'm totally understand that. I mean, they got an attack die increase from 643 to 754. Now they're just a stats monster for 5 points, but since you don't have any other cheap units you can easily stack with them, I think this hurts Brotherhood lists in diversity quite a lot. And I mean, there was a pretty fun peasants list that arose kind of late in season 6. I've seen it by Persierspardose, who ran like 4 peasants with Arya and Sandor de Clegane, for example. And now something like this can't be really built anymore. And it was a 9 activation list. So I think I also don't like this change. But yeah, I think everything's set for the peasants. So let's go to the next change. So now we got Catelyn, which didn't change a lot. She just got Vicious as an additional ability in addition to the granting rerolls on any melee attack. So how would you rate that?
Vicious is good. I mean, there's no nerf here. It's just a little bit of a buff. So but Catelyn remains kind of a slightly problematic NCU in the sense that she's restricted to 1 commander. So if you're running Thoros, she's an option, obviously, but otherwise you're not taking this NCU. So I think, as maybe we'll discuss later, she's a maybe a better option these days in this new meta that we're this evolving early in season 7 with Free Folk. So maybe she'll be seeing a little more play now. But yeah, no, it's across the board. It's a positive change, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why they changed it because it synergizes a little bit with Thoros Commander, at least, with his favorability to heal. And yeah, just a slight buff for everything else. Since they changed Jucken, I think we won't see that many Catelyn Jucken double lists that much, and mostly still with Jucken, but not in the case of just copying Catelyn, I think.
Mhm.
But against the Free Folk, you're either taking Thoros Commander with Catelyn or maybe another option. But let's see what's next. So with the match day, we already talked about it. Giants can be a very big problem for the Brotherhood, since they are nearly every faction is really forced into a very restrictive list building. Because if they want to win tournaments where a free folk player with a Giants list is attending, they need a special list against these giant lists. So, and there are only, I think, two options for this. It's either Thoros Commander or Catelyn Commander, because both can have access to some direct wounds effects, either through Great Access or something like Bog Devils or Kate NCU, or if you're feeling risky, also Lash Out. And for next matchup, what do you think about Lightbringers and Lannisters?
Yeah, so I mean, Lightbringers are they're another problem that has emerged very early in this season, especially if someone is spamming them. Lannisters, I would say Lannisters are a problem. I mean, I've always hated them with a passion exceeded only by
Me
my
too.
hatred of Martells. But yeah, so the Lannister matchup is a classic one that Brotherhood can sometimes have problems with, but definitely the Lightbringers now more of an issue because the Brotherhood isn't known for a ton of morale tools. They have some. They have Azor Ahai. Their units all have kind of a average morale except for the Sworn Knights. But yeah, I mean, at least the Lightbringers issue will maybe be addressed in a patch coming soon. But yeah, I'd say right now the Free Folk matchup is the biggest concern, and then second to that, probably just the classic Lannister matchup. You know, Lightbringers are confined to one faction, but they're definitely a problem. I'm not exactly sure how to handle other than trying not to get shot.
Maybe with a Sentinel spam list through peasants.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, 8 activation can be possible since Lightbringers can easily be used in an 8 activation list. But then you only have 2 copies of Azor Ahai and no other tools except Ghost of Fireheart to boost your morale and hope for the best with a Willow Tree in the middle. So, yeah, and Lannisters with Cersei, with the new Casterly Rock Honor Guard, with Pycelle, with so many tools to disrupt your own game plan, while they can just stay back and chill on the objective. You really have to think about how to get the right angle on the Lannisters. So, and another issue is that Catelyn NCU or Commander actually, kind of deletes some of your options because you cannot take Walder, which I personally think is a very, very strong NCU now, because especially against something like Martell, against high mobility factions, a good placed Walder is a really, really good tool to engage your enemy when he doesn't suspect it, or to hinder your enemy because you attach Walder onto his really mobile unit, and so he can't pivot at the end of his march or maneuver and has to stay in awkward positions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and everything else, even Unsullied Swordmasters and Officer, I think they are beatable. And every other matchup, I would say it's mostly depending on your skill.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, so what's coming next? The winter is coming next. So let's talk about some huge changes, or I would say huge changes, or possible newcomers to the Brotherhood, because I mean, Great Axes saw some play in season 6, but now with season 7, they are definitely a huge impacting factor for the Brotherhood. They can easily compete, or even maybe push the Kingsmen a little bit to the side. And the new House Mormon Cheevers are a really, really nice supporting tool, because what Brotherhood really lacks is token removal. So which one of these two would you choose if you can only get one for your list?
If I could only choose one in this meta right now, I'd probably take the Great Axes, although I really like the She-Bears. They got beefed up a little bit in terms of offensive power, and then now they just have a ton of utility. But the Great Axes now, I think in the environment we're in, I think if you're running Brotherhood, they're definitely a consideration for one of your lists. Like you said, they were popular in the previous season. You'd see Barrack 2-point attachment in them a lot, so that you could throw a bunch of um, you know almost unblockable dice at people. And I think that is going to be a similar situation here. Or even if you're not running Thoros, having that many dice to throw and have super sundering essentially is going to help you out of some potentially problematic matchups. So I would say if you're competing competitively, the Great Axes for me are a unit that you're going to probably want to have in one of your lists. If I'm just going down to the local club to play a game, I'm probably going to want to bring the She-Bears, because they look like they're just going to provide a bit more kind of all-around utility for my entire army. So yeah, I like them both. I have them both actually just out of frame above me, but yeah, I would say they're both great picks for season 7 and Brotherhood.
Mhm. And especially what I really like about the House Number Great Axes, that they make you think about some other neutral attachments instead of the typical Fortune Seeker, Glory Seeker attachment that you take with your cavalry, because these Great Axes are really nice, I personally think, with Dario. Because then you can give them crit blow and precision plus vicious, and mostly no defense dice against most enemies, or the giants, for example. Then they can really beat up some units. And the She-Bears, I think, I mean, the most token-heavy faction is the Boltons. They easily can generate tokens themselves, but against other matchups, those few tokens that you may get above during the round, I don't think are that impactful instead to the Great Axes.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Yeah, the Great Axes with the Dario is definitely a potentially explosive combo.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
mean, with Thoros Commander, you can either just auto charge on an 11 inches with a panic token to get your heal if they are wounded, or with Catelyn for Price of Failure. I think there are some very nice options, but let's see what the Baratheons bring to the table. So I think the Thornwatch might be the more popular one, because if the Baratheon options are talked about, it's mostly about Thornwatch and Catelyn. So, but I personally think that the Stag Knights are a very good pick for Beric, a new alternative to the Kingsman, especially since Beric has quite some options to start engage, to use these additional hits, and hitting on 7 dice with the sword orders. Nice.
yeah, absolutely. The Stag Knights getting their 7 dice across the board again was an amazing change. That was like the most unique part of that unit, and it's good to see it back. And especially, again, going back to the state of the meta now, it's possible you could have one of your trays getting taken down to the last rank in a single attack or a single swing of a Giant's club or something potentially. Having them be able to hit back at full strength is a very, very strong thing.
Yeah,
So
especially with Thoros attachment. I mean, The new Stag Knights are definitely an alternative to the normal Stormcrow Dervish combo. Because why would you want to stay engage Stag Knights? I mean, Dervishes just retreat and heal, but the Stag Knights, if you attack them, they will hit back even harder, thanks to starting engaged.
Right.
But there are still some neutral changes we want to talk about, so let's see. So Walder, Jaqen, and Varys are the most influential neutral changes. Jaqen was already seen in some Thoros lists, maybe even in some other lists, but mostly it's because of the double Catelyn shenanigans you could make with Jaqen. Varys was always a good option before, but now I don't know. And the new Walder, as I've already said, is a favorite choice in a lot of my lists. For any faction, I try to fit in Walder because he gives me so much mobility and utility across the board that I really, really like. So what is your most favorite change?
I would have to say Walder. I used to really love Jaqen. I think he's still very strong, but his utility in Brotherhood is a little diminished, I would say now. So definitely Walder, because if you can either inhibit your opponent's movement or boost your own movement, um, that's amazing, because this game above anything else is really a maneuver and positioning game. So I think Walder plays right into that, and whether he's harming your opponent's movement or boosting your own movement, he's going to bring you value at just about any round of the game, I think. Varys it's good that Varys can do a little bit more than he used to do. He's still a great NCU if you're kind of in a position where you're not exactly sure what NCU to fill your third slot with. He's never a bad choice, but between Jaqen and Walder now, I would say probably Walder is going to provide a little bit more consistent value, or more game-changing value potentially on a particular round.
But both cost 5 points. So most Brotherhood lists tend to run free 4-point NCUs. Because otherwise, this building can be even tougher. But what I really want people to think about is the hidden, or not so hidden, interaction between Jaqen and Thoros NCU, because if you activate Jaqen and copy Thoros, you can gain additional tokens for the rest of the game, which is a huge benefit, possibly depending on either your third NCU, which could be a Varys. Then you can spend those extra tokens for Varys tokens on the later rounds, or to get more copies out of your enemy NCUs. So what do you think about those takeaways? Anything else that might we need to add?
Let's see. So we didn't really cover the Thorn Watch too much. I would say the Thorn Watch change it's really, I mean, it's obviously transformational to how that unit operated before. It's not operating at all like it used to in Brotherhood, but it is still a very powerful unit. And I think really it gives Brotherhood another very powerful ranged option, and opens up the possibility of maybe taking a double range list and under particular circumstances. I'm not sure how competitive this would be. I've thought about sticking Ongi or whatever that 2-point attachment is into the Thorn Watch to threaten an outflank, and if nothing else, you give them swift swift retreat to get out of trouble quickly, to stay alive a little bit more. But we are still that point there, that elite lists are still Brotherhood's forte. That your lists are generally going to have at least one elite unit that you're really relying on to carry a lot of weight or do a lot of work for you. But then, yeah, I would go back. For me, the peasant nerf hurts me quite a bit, because I was really a lover of the wide double peasant throwing bodies at the enemy style of play. So that's a big letdown for me. But there's so many other things that have been added now with the Stark and Baratheon changes, that it's hard to be too upset, because there are just a lot more toys to play with now.
I mean, the Thornwatch in regards to the double ranged list, I mean, for Season 6, we already saw some triple ranged lists for Catelyn, but they used Lightbringers instead. But the new Lightbringers, I don't think, won't see any play in the Brotherhood, since they only synergize with either themselves, or you could say if you destroy an enemy unit, then you can spam a vulnerable token in long range and heal yourself. Okay, but the real value, I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating the Lightbringer option for Catelyn a little bit, but I think the triple range list still can be played with either Thornwatch or Lightbringers, Sentinels and Archers, or maybe even Engai in the Thornwatch. But I think there are quite some options. You have to think about a lot of possibilities for the new list that you may see on the field.
Yep.
But we prepared 2 lists for you. So first we have a Catelyn list, and the second will be a Beric list. Maybe there will be a Thoros list also, but let's see. So I think the classic combo of Great Axes and Catelyn is a go-to option for Catelyn because they synergize with themselves, trigger and prey on fear every time they get attacked through a horrific visage or on their own offensive, so they can stay alive a little bit longer. The classic Sworn Knights with Glory Seeker, the 2 ranged options with Golden Company Crossbowmen and Hot Pie, and Brotherhood Archers and Gendry. But I think the Golden Company can be a little bit flexible with a Golden Company Swordsman as an alternative if you want to play a little bit more infantry heavy and not so much mobility, with the talked about Jaqen Thoros combo and Ravella for the heals. So I hope you can explain the Beric list.
Yeah. So Beric and Stag Knights is, makes the Stag Knights a very mobile and a little bit extra durable unit. So, with Sentinel, they can move around quite a bit. They can charge units. Then they have duty to the crown. So when they're passing morale tests, they'll be healing themselves. So they lost resilience in this patch, but now if you put them in Beric, they'll have a little bit of an insurance policy for that. So they'll be healing back a little bit more. And especially when you get to later rounds in the game, where their new ability kicks in, they'll be healing most of the time that they're attacked. And the Sworn Knights and Glory Seeker is a classic combo. And then we have the Dervishes with Thoros and what's his name? The Squire. Edric. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So with this Thoros list, you have 2 really hard-hitting units. You have the Stag Knights, who can kind of hold the line in the center, while you have the Dervishes camping in and out of combat, dealing a massive amount of damage. And then you have the Sworn Knights, also super beefy tanky unit. And then the Archers, who, by virtue of their ability, don't even have to have line of sight, so you can tuck them behind one of your other units. So I would say this is more of like a classic Brotherhood combo list of you're kind of swapping out the Stag Knights for the Kingsmen. This list would have been a very popular list in Season 6, but just swapping the Stag Knights out for the Kingsmen. But I think the Stag Knights definitely are in contention, I would say, for the Kingsmen's spot now in Season 7. They're a definite contender.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the Jaqen is just a very, very good option, because you can either profit from your own NCUs by getting his second Ghost of Fire for a little bit of token play, or just copy the strong NCUs from your enemies like Cersei, if you want, or Elaria, even depending on if it's a start player, a good Arya move to bring your Stag Knights into position, or the Stormcourt Dervishes to get a good flank charge. I think Jaqen can be a very, very valid option instead of someone like Peter. So you still have to think about, and I think in most lists you still can only take like 1 neutral NCU, since your budget will mostly go to another combat unit. Otherwise, you don't have many in-house options except the second pair of archers or the men-at-arms, which I think could need some love with the next patch possibly, but I don't know.
Let's hope so. They've been kind of the redheaded stepchild of the faction ever since they came out. So they could definitely use a little bit of work.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're in the weird 5.5 units spot. I mean, if we compare them to something like the new Baratheon Halberdiers, who hit on 3+ with a 3+3 armor +6 morale and sundering, and 2 very nice abilities now with the start of round 2-inch maneuver, I think that the men-at-arms, even with ambush, which can't be triggered easily since they lack any shenanigans that make them move around the battlefield easily, they should get a little rework. Either getting down to 5 points, maybe getting their armor reduced to 5 instead, because they're just not the military trained men at arms, just Brotherhood in the bush men at arms. And yeah, but there is some place for new changes for the Baratheons with the next season. But we still got a, I don't know, let's call it underdog list prepared for you. So let's take a look at it. So as you may remember, I already talked about the season 6 9 activation peasants list. And this was the inspiration for this list because it's a Thoros list with Thoros in the Lysine sellswords with crit blow and the additional option for sundering and vicious, which gives a lot of potential for crit blow. And I wanted to add Arya and Sandor, and these combo well together because with the she-bears you have a lot of options for token play in addition to the Ghost of Hayat, so you have more options to heal your units or remove unnecessary tokens on your units. And with something like Regroup and Reform, you are really you have quite some options to move Arya around unexpectedly to kill something like Oberyn out of nowhere, or something like Gregor Clegane or Robert Strong. So any attachment needs to be on the lookout, especially against something like this with an Arya attachment. How do you like this list?
I like this one a lot. This actually looks like similar to lists I built around Lysine sellswords in season 6, except we didn't have the she-bears where they are now. So I've been looking for excuses to put Sandor and Arya into lists for a long time, and usually it's 2 peasants because you need multiple infantry units to throw them into. So usually, as you've done here, the only way to make that happen reliably is to put your commander into a pretty cheap unit themselves. But the Lysine sellswords with Thoros is a unit that is pretty squishy, but if you manage them well, you can make them heal themselves quite a surprising amount. So I think combining the sellswords with hopefully a peasant unit nearby that can give a little gang up to them, and then having the she-bears somewhat close by to do some of that passive healing. I think this is potentially a kind of deceptively tanky unit or tanky list in that it's going to be taking a lot of casualties, but then potentially healing a lot of casualties too. So yeah, this one, it looks like a very fun list, and you've got the archers that are going to just be standing behind a wall of meat in front of them. So I think this looks like a very fun list to play.
Yeah, I mean the peasants with Gendry can easily take some damage before they falter, and with Sandor you can also reduce the damage these peasants take. And with the new Sentinel, actually, they have an option to catch a unit off guard. So your Lysine sellswords or your House Moment Sheevers have a better way to engage and deal a lot of damage thanks to crit blow and an additional attack dice. And hitting on +2, you can just say, I'm just fishing for 6s to get the most out of them. And with Ravella, you always have a backup healing option for your squishy units. So that's it for today. I hope you liked this video, and maybe we see some Brotherhoods on the next tournaments and hopefully on the first place. beating giants.
Yeah, it's a little optimistic, but we can at least try.
I mean, with Bog Devils and Great Axes, there are options for the Brotherhood to play against giants. Or I think the hardest matchup actually might be the Lightbringers, because if you can't engage them, then you're just getting blown apart. And neither Gendry nor any other option the Brotherhood has right now can really help against this much panic damage. So, but what are your closing words for our viewers?
Anytime there's a patch, even if Brotherhood doesn't get touched a whole lot, like they weren't touched directly a whole lot in this patch. The good thing about Brotherhood is that they're like intimately connected to two other factions. So what benefits one or two of those other factions is going to benefit the Brotherhood. I think that's really the biggest takeaway for the Brotherhood in this patch, that so many units from Stark and Baratheon got buffed that the Brotherhood is going to have a whole bunch of new toys to play with, new lists to build. I'm a bit sad that one of their only native units, the peasants, got, in my opinion, nerfed, so that I can't spam them anymore. But there's a lot of new stuff to play with, not a lot of new strategies to try out. So I think there's a lot of fun to be had in experimenting with the Brotherhood for season 7.
Yeah, and with these closing words, roll those crits.
Come for the hits and stay for the crits.